Well, this is Origins of Our Faith. My name is Eric Richardson. Thanks for being with me once again on another program. And, we are going to look at something that I think a lot of times people get a little confused about. And that is why Jesus spoke in parables. Now, you would think that somebody, if they're speaking, giving illustrations, giving different stories, well, that is meant to really make the message clearer, wouldn't you? Wouldn't that be your assumption? In that if you're going to talk and give different stories as you talk and try to use these illustrations within your speech, within your presentation, well, it's going to mean that people are going to understand better what you're talking about by use of those parables, by use of those illustrations. You would think that would be the case. Well, the amazing thing is, when we look at the Bible and we see what the explanation was, that's not the case at all. He was asked, and let's just read this. It says, "And his disciples came and said to him, 'Why do you speak to them in parables?'" So here's the question. Why are you speaking in parables? Now, again, you would think he would say, well, to make it more clear, to make the understanding come out and make it make sense to them. But here's what he said. He answered them, "Because it has been given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been given. For whosoever has, to him more will be given, and he will have abundance. But whosoever does not have, even what he does have will be taken from him. Therefore, I speak to them in parables, because seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand. And in them the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled, which says, Hearing you will hear, and shall not understand, and seeing you will see, and will not perceive. For the heart of this people will have grown dull, and their ears hard of hearing, and their eyes that they have closed, lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so I will heal them. But blessed are you for your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For assuredly I say to you, that many prophets and righteous men desired to see what you see and did not see, and hear what you hear and did not hear it. Therefore, hear the parable of the sower." And then he went on to talk about another parable. But here, when they asked him, well, why do you speak in parables? He said, so they don't understand. It's for you to understand. It's not for them. I'm trying to explain what's going to come about, but in a way, I don't want anybody to know about it. Now that seems like a very odd stance to take, for him to say, I'm doing this specifically so people do not understand. Well, why would that be? Well, the reason for that is because there's a specific timetable for things to happen. And believe it or not, for the past 2,000 years, you haven't really been able to understand this. It has not been part of what you are privy to. It has not been part of what you are supposed to get, because the time was not yet ready for that to happen. You see, the whole point of what Jesus or Yeshua was supposed to do was to enable the northern kingdom, the lost tribes, to return from exile and to be reunited with the southern kingdom, and then the two would unite, Messiah would roll over both kingdoms, and then an era of peace would come to the earth. Now, that's what prophecies say is going to happen. That's what all the prophets point to. Whether you go to Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Zechariah, it doesn't matter. They all point to this. And they all talk specifically about this event happening. about the exiles from the northern kingdom returning. So much was this part of the tradition in Judaism that throughout the Middle Ages there became legends and folklore all around this event that was supposed to happen in the future. However, there were those like Rabbi Akiva, who lived in the 4th century, I believe it was, who thought, well, we've gone to, maybe it was the 2nd century, but he said, this is too far. We're too far removed. The northern kingdom can never come back. But he was in the minority, and certainly not in the basic belief that is standard, and is that belief within Judaism that says, at some time in the future, at some time, and who knows when this will happen, a people will come out of nowhere that will be from the northern kingdom and be reunited with the southern kingdom. Now, there have been people from India and from parts of Africa and from parts of places like Afghanistan and other places, small groups, and even groups that you may consider large, of maybe a few hundred. But that's really little, really tiny, when you consider the size of the northern kingdom as far as how big it should be at this point in history. There have been small groups that have claimed, well, we are from the tribe of Manasseh, or we are from the tribe of whatever, fill in the blank, and have wanted to return, and some of them have been accepted back into Israel as part of the returning lost northern kingdom. But again, those numbers are puny. Nothing compared to what the Bible says is supposed to happen. The Bible talks about a time in Jeremiah, a time in the future, where it says, no longer will you say the God that brought us out of the land of Egypt, but rather the God that brought us from the four corners of the earth, when the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob brings back the northern kingdom from exile. Now, again, this is something that probably you haven't heard a whole lot about, because quite frankly, the Gentiles that became the leadership of the Christian movement, as it became known, they didn't know. They did what they did. They knew what they knew, and they tried to figure things out. But they weren't Torah scholars. They didn't know the traditions. They basically had some writings that they tried their best to understand. They had some letters from Paul and from other people. They tried their best to understand. But there were certain things that they just didn't get. Well, it's time for us to take a short break. When we get back, we'll talk about some of those things that they didn't understand. When we get back, right after this break on Origins of Our Faith.